please, everyone's attention. We're going to get this thing started. I want to welcome all of our guests tonight. If everyone wants to silence their cell phones, watches, whatever makes noise, so we can have great meetings tonight. Those guests, you'll be following me and James. Back there, if you're raising your hand, you'll be going up to the conference room. And all the agents want to go ahead and grab a seat before we get started. Thank you. Great.
Yep. Hey, welcome. How's everybody doing? Good, good. Hey, let's fill these seats, shall we? We have runner-up on points, Bryant Jukes. Where's he out of?
Price.
Alpine?
Price.
Price?
Well, like, it's that area.
In that Alpine Price? Just Price. Is he online?
He should be online.
Okay, great. Second runner-up, Michelle Taylor. She here? She's in Heber. She online? Number one gets the seat, Barb Hanks. St. George. Okay. And they're doing their own meeting tonight. They are not online. They got their own meeting going on. Okay, we've got a tie for top recruits. We have Paul Zolman, St. George, and Jennifer Buss. Take a seat. Who has a guest here tonight? Stand up. Good job. How many you have? 1, 2, 3. You got a chair. Anybody else have a guest tonight? No other runner-up that's here in the room? Oh, man. Who wrote a deal that's not a partner? You submitted something this fund. You submitted a deal? Paul? And you submitted a deal? How many points?
I think it's like 3,000.
And Lauren? 3,001? 10,000? Come on up here. Take a seat. Okay, we have a few fast starts. So, Troy, you want to come up here? Yeah, Beagley.
I've already done my fast start.
It's not for you.
Oh, cool. I didn't know he finished. That's awesome. So, Richard Weidman did his fast start. He is in Portland.
Portland? Is he online?
He should be, yes.
Good job, man.
Good job. Congratulations.
Mitch. Where's Mitch?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Perfect. So I want to have Susan get off the comfy chairs and come up here for a second. Susan completed her fast start and is well on her way to the smart start and has 3 guests here tonight. So
nice.
business is booming so far. So here's that for you.
Paul. I'm glad I'm not doing this one. This name.
Said you would try.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
I told her, I was like, there's no way. Just wanted to recognize Braxton and Veronica Vakautakakala.
Not even trying.
It starts with a V. on completing their fast start, and they are pushing right fast to their smart start as well.
Where are they at?
They are in Richfield.
Richfield, Utah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see. Super Saturday is Saturday, right? Everybody signed up for that? If you haven't got signed up, can they still sign up for this? And they go to
Either on the website or they
on the company website. They can go there under events, register that way, or they can Mike Marchetti. That's Saturday 9 to 1 here. You can preferably be here in person. If you can't be, it can also be online. They'll get you a code once you've registered. Okay, Rod, we have an announcement that we're going to let him make. I don't want to make this one.
So we did have a little bit of a compliance piece that we wanted to go over. In the past, we've been able to pay out commissions to people who are licensed at the time we receive commissions. So we did a little further research, talked to the state, and the first answer they gave us on that was, yeah, that's fine. Well, they called back. And they said, it's a little bit of a gray area. What we'd prefer you do is make certain your agents are licensed at the time of submission. So, going forward, what that means is you need to be licensed when the policy is written up. Now, there's some good things about that, because it's going to push you to get licensed faster. You're not going to take your time. The other good things about that is you will know that the people that you're working with are choosing those products because it's best for them. There's no reason to wait. When I had an example, when I started one of the practice companies, we had to get licensed in multiple different lines. It took much, much longer. I had to pass 3 different tests. When I finally did that, I started out doing my training. Went to my brother, 17 years older than me, right? He has a tough time seeing me as anything other than the little brother. So we went through the presentation, we showed him these incredible things, and he did a policy. He made, somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000, $400,000 a year. He transferred a $100,000 life insurance policy as pity. We don't want to make sales based upon the relationship. We want the introductions based upon the relationship. But the sales should be our products. If they can't see the need, we shouldn't be selling. So just use that as a guideline. We'll never go wrong. We'll always be doing what's right for the customers. We'll never be in the gray area. And this will work out great for us.
Thanks, Rob. No, I will tell you, my whole career, we've always been this way. It's always been you get paid if you're licensed at the time of the sale. And we were able to do that for a while, and it was great where we could pay people if they were licensed at the time the commissions came in. But I got to tell you guys, back at the time when we could only pay people if they were licensed at the time of the submission of the business, that the business was written, people were getting licensed in less than 2 weeks. Okay, so all it takes is just us getting a little bit more focused in our fast start. We'll get them, scheduling the exam that day so they can get through it quicker. I know Cameron knocked it out in 6 days. You've had people get it in, a week. Okay, Cameron's not the sharpest tool in the box. That was your cue.
And congratulations, you three, on getting the chairs this week. We're excited to
You need some water, some treats to go along with those comfy chairs.
hopefully no insults come your way, but
Take your time, as much time as you want. You earn the rights.
Awesome. Congratulations.
All right. I didn't mean to, make him feel bad, but. No, all I'm trying to say, we've had tons of people get through that quick, okay? So just putting a little bit more focus on that and still getting people on their fast start and their smart start. They won't miss out on anything because the first visit, do you write business? Almost never, right? In fact, we don't even encourage it. On the second visit, usually we don't write business. I'm going to say 90% of the time we still don't write business on the second visit, and the second visit's usually in the second week. It's usually by about the third visit when we're writing the business, and that's plenty of time for somebody to get that license out of the way. They just need to get started on it a little bit quicker, okay? A little bit quicker. All right. As you know, we have a contest going for the cabin, so we want to keep that in mind. All right, we got some checks to pass out. Mitchell Bird. Doug Hamilton. Doug. Barry Sawyer. Rod Titchin. Oh, why is this in here? You want to come get it? Should have gave that to you earlier. Nika Sider. She's in Idaho. Okay, first check. Becca Black. Where's she? Cedar City. Paul Tupou. Kishara Garner in Ohio. Blair Hershey in Utah.
Just help with a grandkid.
Ah. Terry Schellenberger, retired. Austin Webb. It's got a little smell to it. Ben McGee. Good job, Ben. Caleb Wand. Terry Brown. Steve Ross. Steve. Troy Lee. Mike Tasha. Okay. Who's doing training tonight? Just kidding. Oh yeah, we have Fast Start class going, as you all remember, right? Every week now. So you only go once. If you've not attended the Fast Start class, Tasha's teaching that in my office, right? So who needs Fast Start class tonight? Several online, okay? Nobody in here, but online, you're going to jump onto another link and get on with Tasha, okay? So you could do that in your office. Just saying. Okay. Terry Pruitt, where are you? How can I miss you? We got Terry Pruitt doing training tonight. Give him a big hand.
So we got exciting topics tonight. How indexes work. Now, I've also got Lauren and Marie who worked very hard to really put this presentation together, okay? We did the best we could to make it as entertaining as possible. So what we'd like you to do, though, is kind of take some notes, because if a lot of this is stuff that you really should know. In fact, you should know all of it. But don't be surprised if a lot of it goes over your head, because it's just the nature of it. You know, if you haven't been doing this for very long, it very well may go over your head. Okay, I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years and still a lot goes over my head. Okay, and right now I'm thinking I'm going to take off and go to the bathroom, but I'm not going to. Okay, just kidding. All right, let's see. Let me see if I can get this signed in here. Where's the cord at? See if I can figure out which plug to put it in. I'm also not the most technical of people either when it comes to technology, so. All right, I'm gonna do this. All right, so who here thinks they understand everything there is to know in an IUL or an annuity? Good, because nobody does. You can call FG and Allianz and they'll give you different answers for the same question. So. All right, so understanding indexes. All right, so what are they, okay? I don't want this to be some kind of just a definition thing, because if we do that, you're gonna go to sleep. But I do have the definitions up there because sometimes it's really difficult to hear on YouTube. So we put them up there just so that they can pay attention and maybe do screenshots and take photos of this, whatever it is they do online to really get it, but sometimes it's just not the best quality. So anyway, so an index is basically an indicator of what your money is going to be doing along with the market. Your money's not actually in the market. It's just kind of indicating and going along with what the market's doing, okay? So just think of it as like they just have your money sitting there. At the end of a crediting period, they just credit you whatever that money is, okay? So how do they work? Okay, well, as you can tell, they have participating index options and, you know, the opportunity of market-based returns. I mean, you get market-based returns, but you get protection from the losses at the same time. So, which is why we tell people they have that zero floor so they can't lose any money, okay? Now, some companies like FG have a 0.25% floor, so no matter what, you make a minimum of 0.25%. So the market could be down for the next 100 years, which has never happened in the history of the market, but you still get a minimum of 0.25%. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so how do they work? Well, rate on an index option is calculated over, if it's depending on what the crediting period is, it could be monthly, yearly, it could be 2-year point to point, but it's credited over that monthly period. And then it's calculated with different methodology for for each strategy, which we'll go into in a little bit. But the important terms and definitions, did you want to take this, Marie? Okay, perfect. And then we'll go from there.
I'm not always sure where I need to stand for everybody online, so just remind me if I'm
If you're presenting, they see the screen.
cool.
They don't see you as much.
Awesome. Well, I'll just hide in the corner then. All right. So, like Terry was talking about, we've got indexes where we have money allocated into. They're going to mirror that market performance, and it's just a way to keep track of growth in the market and then what you might be credited. When something on an illustration says point to point, they're looking at specific points to another specific point. Now, there's a lot of different options. Terry, we just went over.
The point is a date.
Yes, the point is a date. That is true. So there will be different options. Like he was saying things like monthly, yearly, and there's a couple of our products that have a 2-year interest crediting period. And those points, the starting point is day 1 of their policy, and then if it's a year, then it's a year from that original date. So if it's everybody, what is today's date? Anybody? It's a very exciting date. Why is it exciting? Nobody's excited about it, right? Well, sure. They did extend the tax date, but April 15th, if your policy started today, then a year from now is April 15th, 2021, or 2022, yes, because today is I'm still stuck in 2020. Anyway, so when you see point-to-points on anything, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at start date today, and a year, like if it's a year point-to-point, then a year from that. If it's 2 years, so today is April 15th, 2021, and 2 years from today is, awesome, okay. Now next, there is a monthly point-to-point, and these are just to really kind of describe some of those things, what that looks like. So we've got, this was actually yesterday, in this regard, and then if we had all of this growth, what is going on is that we're not overly concerned about all of the different things that happen in between those points, because we're really just looking at the difference between one point over the other. Still with me? Okay, all right. So in monthly point-to-point, same type of thing. We're just looking at that one date in that month to the next date in that next month, right? Now, there's something that we're going to, overall, we're going to just gloss over this one. Monthly averaging. It is a feature.
Back a slide, and just kind of show everybody what we mean by that point-to-point on the graph there.
Yep. So if this was your start date right here at this point, and this is a 2-year one, but it doesn't matter, whatever the crediting period is, if it was 1 year, you'd be looking at 1 point and 1 point. If they say this is your starting point, and say this point all the way over here is your end point, from the presentation, then you are looking at the difference between that point and that point.
It doesn't matter what's happening in the middle.
Nope, doesn't matter at all. Okay, so those are the things that we're going to look at. And when we look at that, I can go back to the definition for everybody online as well. We're just looking at the difference between, now I don't have the picture, but the difference between that 1 point, whatever it is, and the other. Okay, any questions so far? And I know it sounds funny to stress over this. It really doesn't matter what's going on in the middle of that period. When it's a point-to-point, we're only looking at that 1 point versus that other. Cool beans? All right, it's all about the beans. All right, okay, we're going to just gloss over this one. This is a feature in the annuity. It's an option, an index option that's available. Now, there is some really fun math that I actually got a really interesting opportunity. I don't even know how this fell into my lap, but I had an opportunity to see kind of and figure out the formula with which some of these things are calculated. Anyway, this is where they're just taking the averages of the months and then doing their calculations with that. I'll put this up here real fast. I don't expect anybody to know what this is. This is my own abbreviation for some of these terms, but that's the formula. But really what we're happening here is that they're measuring changes in the index by calculating multiple dates within it, the same day each month. They average out that monthly average, and then they compare that with the index value at the start of the index term, so the beginning of your index crediting period. If there's an increase, then interest will be created, that should be credited, I apologize for the typo, credited to your account. Now, there are other features within indexes, so there's lots of different index options out there in general, and then within the companies and the products that we show our clients. And each different index option has different features and benefits within it. So we're going to talk about some of the other terminology that, again, these are some of the things that we really should know. Don't stress over it. If you don't know, if you want a copy of the presentation, we're here to help ask questions. But we want to make sure that we do understand, because if a client is asking us questions, we want to make sure that we understand how to at least communicate with them and how these products work, okay? So really quick, we are going to talk about participation rate. Without reading it, nobody read it, but I want somebody in amongst here to tell me what they know of participation rate. Anybody? Don't read it. Krista? Oh, no, all right. Ben? Right, so it's a rate that they are participating in that index in. So if they have, let's just do some easy math here. If they have 100% of their dollars that they're putting into that index, they're allocated, say, to the Barclays Trailblazer Index in an IUL. What's one of our favorite things about the Barclays Index? There we go. We'll talk about that in a second. But what's the participation rate? 190. Why is that cool? I mean, it's really, really cool. Don't get me wrong. Right. All right. So what that means, we're participating in that index at 190%, which means if that index does 10%, we're going to do our cool little math problem. It's right here. If it gets 10%, we're going to multiply it by 190%, so 1.9, and that means that we're going to be credited 19% in that example, right? And that is awesome. Do all indexes have 190% participation rates? Right. I was looking at an entirely different company for an entirely different thing, and I was a little sad that their participation rate was only 65%. And I just thought, oh, that's sad, and I mean, don't get me wrong, that would feel great if, against zero, right? You know what I mean? But at 190%, that's pretty amazing. So we've got some really great products, and they have some really great features. We want to make sure that we understand what they are, so we can help our clients understand what they are and how that benefits them, okay? Real quick, I am going to turn some time over to Lauren, and she is going to talk about some of the other terminologies. Keep getting caught in the not wearing hoods next time.
All right, now I've also done some of this because one of the things that I would like you to look at, if you're a partner, you really ought to do this, so you can just kind of spread these around. If you want to look at it, so I'm going to be talking about caps and spreads.
So caps, we kind of have an idea, but I want you to take 2 minutes and look at the questions that are at the top of the page on this one. And those questions are, what is a cap? What are the types of policies that have caps? Why do companies have caps? Why do caps matter? Why do caps matter in sales meetings to the client?
So take 2 minutes if you want to do a neighbor,
if you are online, just take a minute and look at these, see what you think, kind of reflect on what is it that you know about caps? Is it something that you are familiar with? What does it mean? How does it apply? And how does it help or hinder us in our sales efforts? Okay, so turn to a neighbor and just talk to him for a second and pick a question. Okay, so based on the conversation and some of the things that I'm hearing, not everybody understands caps. Not because I'm hearing things that I want a mic.
Oh, you wanted to come? I think you wanted to come.
No, I want a mic so that people can hear them when they speak.
Well, then they can hear.
They can hear? Okay, we're gonna guarantee that you guys can hear. Okay, so not because I'm hearing wrong things, but I am hearing people explain things. So what is a cap? Now no one knows. Okay, Ben?
A cap is the amount that the index won't credit after it reaches a certain point. So if the cap is 12%, the index says 13%, the customer only gets 12%.
So what types of policies have caps? Index what? What? IRAs? Annuities? IULs? Most everything that we sell, right? Now, do all companies have caps? Do all indices have caps? Okay, so Marie's already mentioned a couple that do not have caps. A lot of them do. A lot of them have spreads. So why do caps matter? And when I'm looking at historical data, it doesn't seem to affect it very much. So do caps matter really to us in our sales and to our clients? Okay, Ben's going,
If they're worried about caps, then they matter. But if they're educated on what these products typically do, they're not a big issue.
can you expand on that a little bit?
So, I would never tell a customer that's worried about them that they're no big deal, because obviously they're concerned. But the power of it is because we don't lose money. The caps have less of an impact on it because the benefits outweigh the drawbacks of that cap by quite a bit.
So when Steve has done his education and has looked and compared the data, well, we look at it, and this is one of the misconceptions that I had when I started. It was like, well, if they're guaranteeing no loss, they have to cap in order to make sure that the business or the bank isn't losing money, right? Okay, okay, so yes or no? Why not?
Because they earn their sorry. They earn money in a completely different way. They use this to fund their insurance policies, they invest it in different areas. And so it doesn't matter how much money you make, because the money that they make is not tied with that specific index.
Yeah, and so when we're looking at indices,
And we're saying this is how they have to make it, then we're really stuck to that index, but the bank is not.
Well, it's obvious that they don't have to do that, or there can be things that they can juggle around to make it work, because there are policies that don't have caps, right? The way that
I mean, when Barclays is paying 190%.
yeah.
Does there have to be a 12% cap?
Sort of the way that I see it is they're just hedging their risk more in their investment, right? That doesn't mean that they have to do that, but it's always a safer bet for them if they give themselves a larger margin or extra funds here or there that they don't have to pay out.
Just in case.
It's just a smart idea for those specific companies.
Rod?
One thing to note is the companies we choose to work with fall under these guidelines. There are other companies out there that have horrible caps. They don't do the same philosophies trying to make the best return for the clients. Sometimes they just want to build bigger glass buildings.
Yeah, and when I started doing this, one of the reasons that I got into this business
Is because I teach math to my graders. And as I'm teaching math, every year I tell them there is one lesson that you must pay attention to. You have to pay attention because, and you have probably been there as students. Because when am I ever going to use this? Right? Okay?
I said that because, so help me. When I'm teaching these students, I will tell them, this lesson you will use for the rest of your life.
Period. Whether you know it or not. And part of that lesson,
I tell them a story about a guy, he was a computer programmer. Now, when we look at banks,
how many banks are there in the world?
A lot.
You think there are?
Really, it comes
banking software and saying, look, what he noticed was these banks are doing all of these transactions. And he noticed that when you're making 3/8%, whatever, 5.3 or 5.3 or 3/8 or 1/8, whatever, there's always this little half or a tenth or a thousandth of a penny that's left over. Well, the bank's not paying it to you, they're not doing it for us, right?
They can't hear you.
And they can't keep it.
They can't keep it because it doesn't belong to them. So what this software engineer did, he says, I'm just going to make this program. So any time that a bank truncates the decimal, that hundredth or that thousandth or that 10,000th of a penny is just going to go into this other account. And I mean, who's going to miss a 10,000th of a penny, right? And he says, after a couple of years, I might have some money. We can go on vacation. And he came in on Friday, and there was $4 million in his account. He ended up going to prison for grand larceny because that 10,000th of a penny is getting traded hundreds and thousands of times a day. This is how your money is being traded and built. It's not on these indexes alone. Money's going all over the place all the time, 24 hours a day. So they're not making money, they're protecting themselves, they're giving themselves this cap and this hedge. But how many of you, as you have been selling this, somebody has said, how can a bank afford not to have a cap? Have you been asked that question? I would say at least half of my presentations, they have asked, well, how can they afford to do that? Trust me, the bank is taking care of itself. Steve?
Let's clarify, we're not talking about banks, it's the insurance company, right? So the banks aren't, we're not, just as a point
of clarification. But you've got, what we're talking about though, is an insurance company that is based on an indice, or an index that is based on LIBOR, coffee, Sophie, or one of these other things that are very integrated with the economy, yes? Yeah, so, and this money is being traded all over the place. So they are integrated here. So how we answer those questions is pretty important. Now, what's the difference between a cap and a spread? Ben? Even if you didn't raise your hand, I'd be calling on you at this point.
A spread is a fee that they charge for using a specific index. And generally it's because that index is very good. And then as far as your next question, it's generally applied or charged before the index is paid. It's off the top of the index.
So they skim it off the top to make sure that the company is protected? Yeah. Okay, Paul, what do you think?
It's April 15th, I'm sorry.
So when is a spread applied? Okay, so if there is not a positive return, do we still make money? We as the client or the owner of the policy. So we're still, well, I mean, it's only 0.0 or 0.25, which is only 5 times what we're making in the bank account, right? So yes, there is still, even if there is a spread. Now, this is the next thing, and this, if you flip over your paper, it's on the back. Please, yeah.
It doesn't matter the spread, it has nothing to do with the index, it's just how the insurance company is deciding to calculate the interest for that. They've decided to use a spread instead of a cap, or whatever else to add, type of a thing. It doesn't have anything really to do with the index itself, it's just how they're crediting the interest.
Because the insurance company isn't paying us based on the index, it's based on how the index performs, and then they choose how to pay us out based on the performance of the index. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you had a zero, the cool thing about a spread is if you had a 0% year, right, they're not gonna charge a spread if you go negative. You're just still gonna get 0.
Right. Yeah, and that's why that question was on there. Are we still gonna make money, or do we go into the negative? Did you have a comment?
Oh, I just had a question. What, as like the insurance company, what is the benefit of going with a spread versus a cap? Is it, like if you're the insurance company, how do they decide which indexes?
That's a really good question. Ben? Does anybody have an answer to that? How do they determine? I don't have any idea.
There's some base calculations that go into it. So if it's an actual index that's regularly traded, there's fees for those options.
And
if it's a specialized, like Barclays, this is the one that this company has a contract with. Those options don't cost anywhere near the same as an S&P 500. Hence, you'll see the differences between their rates.
Now, and the other thing you'll notice, and I didn't know whether or not Marie was going to touch on this, but I didn't see it in your slides, was the DJ, which I actually just learned about this last week, which is what, Terry? That deals with real estate, okay? And their participation rate is much lower because they're not going to pay those same returns, so they're not going to have the same kind of thing. Now, if we compare these, this is the IUL chart, this is an annuity chart. They're both FG because it doesn't matter whether we're looking at FGs or Allianz or National Life, or if it's a cap, it's a cap. If it's a spread, it's a spread. So I like to compare these two. What's the difference between these two charts? Just yell out something that you notice. What do we see? What? One's bigger. Okay? I'm dealing with my 9th grade class here. One's bigger. The next thing comes, well, they both have green. Yes, so okay. So one's bigger, but why? Why is one bigger? What's going on here? That's not going on here. Options, okay? So like looking at just the trailblazer here, what's the difference between these two options?
The charge.
Okay, so that we can have a charge or not have a charge. Now this is something that I had to get clarification on today because I'm still relatively new. We're still trying. And we look at this, and now, and when we first saw this months ago, we said, okay, over here, we have cap, rate, and spread. Now, down here, it was like, well, how do you know which one? Is it a cap? Is it a rate? Is it a spread? If it's a cap of 5%, am I going to be excited about this particular account? No. Okay, so is this a cap, rate, or spread? Well, if we're anyway observant, it says spread. Okay, so this is going to be spread. Now, the other thing that I was confused on is what it says, we have a guaranteed spread of 5%. That's not something I want either. Do I want a spread of 5%, or what does this mean? Up to 5%. This means it is guaranteed not to go over 5% if you start in the time that this chart is active, right? But currently, they are charging a 0% spread. It could go up to 5% in the next year when that point-to-point reactivates, okay? Here, we look at this one. It says S&P 500 is with a cap. So what is this talking about?
It's guaranteed to the one, but you're not going to get anything above that, even though it's currently at 3.5.
So it's currently at the cap is currently 3.5. So our money is capped out at 1% return. Worst you can do is 1%. So when we look at this and it says cap, rate, or spread, we need to be a little bit careful. We want to understand what's going on. Now we look at this up here. How is this one different? Because here we have now our IUL. So we're looking over here. Somebody explain this for me. I hope somebody can explain this, or we are in a real big trouble as far as this industry is concerned. Ben?
Well, the allocation is just, you've got 100% of your money being indexed on that particular one. And then it shows the average over the last 25 years. And there's a minimum, which is showing,
Well, why doesn't this show anything right here? Yeah, we don't have the historical data on these, right? They haven't been around very long. Now, what is this column? What's going on here?
That's the maximum amount of percentage rates we can illustrate when we're showing
Based on that have just been enacted recently, and they've changed them, and yeah, so that's what we can show. That's what we can show, so there's that difference. Now I want to look at one last thing. This right here, and this was always really intimidating to me to try and figure out what is going on. But if we compare this, and you've got this chart, so I want you to look at the different charts. We've got the S&P 500, the gold, the Dow Jones, and the Barclays. So if you compare your chart, and it says, look, the S&P 500, does it have a cap or a spread?
Cap.
Has a cap of 12.5. That's what it says on your chart. So if I look here, they have 17.32. What did they pay out? 12.5. They made 12.89. We get 12.5. They had 5.41. They get 5.41. That makes sense. Now, what about this one? Do they have a cap or a spread? It's a cap of 16. Now, does this look like a better option than this one? Sure, yeah, but this one, notice on all of them, the lowest you get is the 0.25 on every single one of these. So we have that minimum, but we also have this. It shows us what the index actually did, but then it showed what it's paying out based on how the insurance company is doing it. Dow Jones, here we have a 26.81. What's going on here? Why isn't that the same? It's the spread, and on your chart, it says the spread is 1.25, and all of these have a difference of 1.25, unless it's at a loss, which is still there. What's going on here with Barclays?
There's no cap.
Okay, no cap, no spread. Participation rate is what? Yeah, with this one, it was 180 when this one was printed. So I just pulled this off of an illustration. So on this one, we had 4.39. The participation rate gives you almost 8%. Then when we come down, and it finally gives you the 10-year average. Barclays doesn't have a 20-year average because they weren't around. But with the 10-year average, you can see, and that's where we get, well, and now I think it's like 3.08 or something like that. Steve?
Caps on the S&P 500 and the Barclays are higher.
On?
Freedom product versus the gold
They're
product.
both IULs. This is the gold, and we have the freedom choice as well. So you have the freedom and you have the gold.
Yeah. So, like, you look at that and you think, well, why would I ever write gold? Why would you write gold?
Because
I
it's
just want to be a gold standard.
Because it's based on the gold standard? Why else would you write gold?
Someone might really want.
That's your option, right?
So there are times when we need that, but it's, you know, the freedom gives us a lot more freedom. How about that? Okay, we're back to Marie.
Thank you so much. All right. All right. Pop quiz. If your index did 12% and you had 4% spread, how much do you get? I heard it, but I didn't hear it very confidently. All right. What am I doing wrong? I'm sorry, guys.
The display switched. It's probably extended versus mirrored.
Who's that young guy on the right?
I don't know, that was a while back.
Sorry, guys. Technology's not my forte. Okay, next pop quiz.
Nope,
Your
that's not it.
participation rate, you might want to get your calculator for this, because I don't know this off the top of my head either. Your participation rate is 180%, and the index is 12. What do you get? 20. Awesome.
I'm not sure which one it is, Rob.
Calculator. Awesome. And if you have a cash
I'm sure which one it is, Rob.
and the index does 21%, what do you get? Awesome. All right. Some of the other differences too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. We are gonna go, over, yes. Terry's gonna go over these actually really quick for us.
Okay. All right. Okay. So who here knows what a reset is? But just by raising hands, I don't expect you to say it, Ben. Okay, so resets, pretty much, they apply at the end of whatever the crediting period is. So even a month to month, for example, is, even though it's point to point, right, for the month, it's still, the crediting period is not till the end of the year. So even if they're in a month to month, they're not gonna see it till the end of the year. So it's usually a 1 or 2 year crediting period, okay, depending on what you're in. So, so a reset is so when you start, you remember the point to point that we were talking about, when you start, let's say you started at 2,000. At the end of the year, you were at 10,000, okay, based on this. So based on this, if you started here, which was roughly 2,500 or 2,800, and you wind up at 4,000, okay, you'll get the difference between that at the end of the crediting period, right? Okay. Now, going back to this though, so the next year though, you're going to start at that high rate, at that high level. So if you go above that, you make a little bit of money. If you go below it, you're at 0, which is a good thing because now you're buying low. Okay, so that next year you're buying low. You're starting at that 0 point. So at that 0 point in this scenario, so you start at 0 because that's what the index, because you made 0 that year. You start at 0. It goes up from there. So if it made 10%, you get a full 10%, up to whatever the cap is, participation rate or spread. Okay. Don't forget to add in any fees if you're in one of the feed ones. Okay. So there you go. All right. Now risk control. Okay. By the way, you have any questions on that? Did I explain it well enough? Okay, because it can be very confusing. Okay, especially when I'm trying to explain it. All right. So risk control. All right. So basically, that as Lauren was talking about the data. Go ahead. Yes.
So, if you bought high, like at that peak in the middle,
This was.
yeah. So let's say the market
Grab this.
was down, halfway through that, down at the very bottom right there, and that was your 1 year period of time.
Correct.
You get 0.
Right.
But our graph shows a line that goes straight at the top.
Correct.
Our graph, where you don't lose money,
Right.
would be straight at the very top.
Correct. It would just go straight across. From here, straight across.
So in our graph, when this drops, our graph shows this going straight, right? If this was the end of your crediting period, we're up here.
Right. Still there?
But when you start the new crediting period, you actually start down here, not up where you were. You start down here. Your money stays here, but your new money going in starts down here.
Correct. Yes. So, yeah, exactly. The new money would start at 0. The old money, you don't lose it. It's still there. Okay. Thank you for clarifying because I needed it, and I just hit something. I don't know what I hit. Okay. Yeah. Apparently. Okay. All right. So, any more questions on it? Comments, concerns, anything need to be clarified? James is done in there, so if you have guests. Susan? That was you? Okay. So we don't have any comments, concerns, anything on this one? Everybody understands it okay? Okay. Let's move on to risk control. All right, so basically risk controls basically tries to mitigate the losses in the market. But on the other side of that, though, it also kind of cuts back on your gains as well, okay? Because it's kind of trying to level everything and make it nice and even. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and what the companies are doing, let me grab this again. So what they're doing is that when they're on the upside, you see all these black dots. So I use black because they're in the positive. Red is negative, okay? So when the market is up, they're really investing that money, right? when it goes down, they put it in things like bonds that are nice and safe and give you a nice fixed interest rate. So as it's going up and down like that, that's how the companies stay in business with these risk controls. I think I explained it. So basically, as it's going up and down, they're just taking your money and then re-strategizing between, the riskier stuff and then the bonds, which are safer, and turning it and making it so that it is giving it a fixed rate of return at the end of it and getting some really good deals. Go ahead, Rod.
So you're talking about one of these risk control.
Correct, like the Dow Jones, PIMCO, Tactical, Bloomberg, and is there another one? I thought there was another one, but maybe not. Trailblazer, Barclays is also. So those are all risk-controlled accounts that we have access to, ERs. Okay. All right. So, Marie, would you like to take this one? Sure, it's all yours.
Okay, so within some of the companies and the products that we have, there are some of those different features and benefits. Not all of those indices are the same. Not all of them have the same features. So now that we've learned about caps, spreads, participation rates, all of those things, we're going to talk about just some of the different index allocations that are options in the products that we have. So in Allianz's IUL, we have the S&P 500 as well. There's lots of other indices, but there are ones that we tend to prefer. Now it's called Select. It's the one that has the 40% bonus. Now, complements of AG49, what about Allianz Illustrations is different right now than pre-AG49? Anybody? Ben is the only one who knows all the answers. That's awesome. Of course I do.
We can't show the bonuses.
Right, are they still there? The bonuses are still there, but we cannot show them in the illustrations. That's right. So the bonus themselves in that index is still there. It's just not going to be illustrated on your illustration. The Select option has that 40% bonus. It does come with a 1% asset charge. Okay, when we start talking about asset charges, anybody but Ben have an idea? No offense, Ben, you just get picked on all the time. And when we talk about an asset charge, what is that?
It's managed funds, and they're paid to do the management.
Right, so we have people that are saying, and in this index, they're saying, where you're going to get your interest, whatever it is, and then, depending on, Steve?
It's not really a managed fund as much as it is just a charge on your total amount in your account. That's it. It's pretty straightforward that you're just getting a 1% charge based off of the amount of money that's in your account.
Right, absolutely. So you get your index, whatever you're being credited, and I'm just going to make up a number, say it's 13%. And now with this bonus, I'm going to get 40% of the 13%, that's right. But I'm also going to minus the 1%, because I'm going to have a minus the 1% asset charge.
Now, is it minus 1% after you've been given that 40% bonus as well? So is it everything included, or is it just 1% of the 13?
Most asset charges will happen at and anybody like Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, the asset charges typically happen at the beginning of the index crediting period.
It has nothing to do with the bonus. It's a charge on
right.
So it's not like, hey, you got 13 and then we're going to give you 40 and then minus off 1% and then that's your bonus. No.
Right.
They give you the full amount and on an annual basis, they're charging you 1% fee on your account value.
Right. Right. So another great way to look at that too is with the annuity, and we'll talk about this in a second. So, and this is easier to comprehend because the index crediting period happens at a different time than the asset charge does. But in our one of our FG annuities, it has a 2-year index crediting period. And that means that in that 2-year period of time, they don't get that index credit until the end of that 2-year period. But they have in our Barclays account that has a fee, they have a 1.25% asset charge. That asset charge happens at the beginning of that crediting period. So say they start with $10,000 that they're rolling over. We're going to do some easy math. And they are going to charge that 1.25%, and they charge it at the beginning of the index crediting period. of the $10,000 because that's what's in there, right? So their account balance drops, but not because it lost money, it's just being charged that asset fee, right? And then in this annuity, 2 years into that annuity, that rollover, then they get that index crediting, right? So like Steve said, they're two separate things. That asset charge happens, and that's happening on that account balance. And then that later, when that crediting period ends, they are credited whatever potential interest that they have acquired, and either with their bonus or without, right? So the Select has that 40% bonus. It does come with that 1% asset charge. The bonus one just has the 15% bonus, no asset charge. There's two others. We don't commonly look at them, but 0.9% in the bonus and no charge. Steve?
Just to say, just to clarify too, you can choose either the Select or the other 15%. That's up to you.
Right.
But with that 1% charge, a 15% bonus could actually outperform it because you're not paying the fee.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, Allianz came and told us that unless the index is actually performing at like 8% or higher, the 15% bonus will be better for them overall with no fee. The other thing about the 1% charge is that as your account gets larger, you're going to pay a larger fee too, right? So it becomes much more impactful on the back end of the policy.
Right.
So when you're trying to reduce charges to keep costs low, you're tacking on a larger charge.
Right, absolutely. And that's, so just in case anybody didn't hear it, so that 1% charge, asset charge, when your account balance gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we all want that to happen, right? Our accounts are getting very, very big. 1% of $10,000 is what? 1% of $100,000 is, Scott?
The beauty is that you could do the 1% to begin with for the first 10 years.
You guys keep stealing my thunder.
You might say, hey, I'm going to switch to the 15% bonus, so I never have to pay the asset charge anymore.
Yep.
And you've already got a bigger balance now that I can continue to grow, but I don't have to pay the fee anymore. Just because you bought it once doesn't mean you have to keep it the whole time.
Right,
Move in and out of these accounts, which is really awesome.
absolutely. Great minds think alike. So guys, with that, do you guys know how often you can reallocate your index into your indexes? Once a year. When? Cool. What's your anniversary date? Awesome. You guys are all awesome. Okay. All right. I threw this in here as well because it's going to just show in Allianz the different, what they currently are. So our allocation, our participation rates in particular that we're looking here, and we're looking at this column right here, we're going to see that they do fluctuate over time. And so these are their current participation rates. And like I said, they will fluctuate over time, but once they're into that participation rate, they'll be that until their anniversary date. Right. We're going to just skip over. This is the historical information. One of the things that's really important too is that it's not always super exciting to go read an illustration. I do recommend doing it. It's really fascinating to read some of them. You can find definitions to terms in the illustration, things like cap, spread, participation rate, things like that. You'll see historical information. All illustrations they will have historical information on how those particular indices performed and their features and benefits. So Freedom, we talked a little bit about FGs, IULs, the differences between Freedom and Gold. And one of the other differences that we talked about that's not on the screen here is that Gold is the only available option for minors. So 17 and younger have to be in Gold, 18 or older have the option for Freedom as well. And then Fidelity and guarantees, so FGs, annuities. Their current rates, their current participation rates are here. And again, that Barclays asset charge, that is an option that they can choose, but just like Scott said, they don't have to be in that forever, and neither with Allianz or FG's annuity or the IUL, Allianz's IUL. You do get that option to change and change your mind, like to reallocate every year if you want. And then the number one thing that we want to also talk about right here is really what it all means for us, right? I know it's super exciting to talk about, you know, caps and participation rates and all of these really fun things. I really do recommend reading the illustration. Take a highlighter to it, or get a notepad. If you've got questions about it, go find your trainer.
So the partners had North American come in to rep for North America.
Right.
And we asked a question, and he's like, you know what? I'm not 100% sure about that. And let me write that down, and I'll get back with you.
That's fantastic.
So even the guy who's supposed to be the expert in that particular product was doing that same thing. And I didn't lose respect for the guy because he didn't have the exact answer. I respected him that he didn't want to give us an answer and wanted to verify that he was giving us correct information.
10 years?
Yeah.
26 in the industry.
That is awesome. And this is really, really important. We don't expect you guys to know all of this right up front, you know what I mean? Of course, we all get to pass our test and get our license so we can get paid. And we want to understand it so we can help our clients understand this information and understand how it's impacted by them. We don't want to overwhelm them, but we do want to be able to answer those questions. But it's so, so, so important that if we don't know the answer, it's okay to say, just exactly like that guy from North American said, that's a great question, let me get back to you. We don't want to be making stuff up. In fact, if you remember anything about your exam, you shouldn't be making anything up anyway, you know what I mean? And we want to keep that credibility for ourselves and what we do and our company, but so that we can give our clients the best information and help them understand how all of this information impacts them and help them understand what the benefits of their products are. So with that, don't be afraid to ask questions. Reach out to your trainer, your partner, literally anybody, so that you can get the information and get that answer to that question. Cool beans? All right, that is all we have for you today.